Good evening, November Foxtrot. I apologise. Very last minute. Camera change there. Just trying to.
Did that do a cool little remix, or is it just my?
Oh no, that was the same as normal.
Yeah. No, it went. Oh, on mine, it must have paused for a second because it went wow, and then did it again, and I was like, oh, I like that.
Well, maybe for the future we could do that.
Yeah.
That's, something to aspire to. Good evening to our virtual audience. So far we have in the chat Kenny, Les, Zombie Ames, Pegasus. Good evening, good evening. It's going to be an interesting show tonight. I feel like this is probably one of the more prepared shows that we've done for quite a while.
One of us is prepared.
Well, yeah, I'm prepared. I'm prepared.
And also, just to answer some people's questions, me and Lance are not the same person, which is why we can't be on the screen at the same time. Apologies for last week. All sorted now. Should be rolling back to normal. Lance has family things tonight, so
yeah. Hi, Roscoe.
But we're not the same person dressing up. It's not like Superman, Clark Kent.
Oh, that'd be weird. Which one of you takes off? Well, I don't know what even you would take off.
I'd have to have the glasses, so I'd have to be Clark Kent, wouldn't I?
You take the glasses off, and the little mullet just grows at the top.
The little top knot.
Yeah. All right, on tonight's show, we're going to be talking about team leader skills in Airsoft and MilSim. So this is a list that we have put together from our experiences, bits of advice that we don't always follow ourselves, but it's something good to aspire to. So hopefully we can try and kind of come up with something. If you think there's anything that we have missed off, then please feel free to add in the chat. Put a little Q at the beginning, treat it like a question because it would just make it easier to find and we can keep track on what's going on. But first off, before we get into any of that, me and Lance went to an event.
Yeah, I didn't.
You were at an event the week before, weren't you?
Yeah, the week before, yeah.
So, Andy, what event did you go to the week before?
I attempted LARPing, which is...
Now, this isn't an Airsoft LARPing thing, is it? This is a proper LARPing.
It was different. It was an experience. So I was I was a Mongolian dinosaur hunter. And I found out that LARPing involves basically getting really drunk from about 12 o'clock onwards and then running out to a field and hitting each other with foam sticks. Then coming back and drinking and eating more. I was like, this is made for me.
Although to be fair, some airsofters do the same thing, albeit not with the foam sticks.
No, I must say I have a really weird idea for an event that's kind of come off of this, and I think it would be something totally different that the airsoft scene has never seen before. So I'm gonna, when me and Mike get a moment after the show, we're gonna have a little chat because I want to bring it up with him, and then obviously Lance as well. But it might be something to do with the future NoFo event of how it's run. But yeah, it's given me some good ideas. I would say to anyone that enjoys role playing, just give it a go. It's actually quite good. And this is what confuses me, right? It was £100 entry for the whole weekend. About right. Then they give you £100 of fake money. Right? You can spend this fake money on real beer, real food, real weapons, and I'm like, but it's fake money. And they're like, yeah, here, have it.
Were the prices comparable though? So was it
a lot cheaper?
Oh, blimey! Okay,
it worked out like 5 pennies. It worked out it was like 5 pennies for a pint, and I was like,
"Is it like real pennies?"
No. They made their own special pennies for the event.
Yeah. But in terms of, so I'm talking conversion rates here. So say that you had £1.
It was 1 for 1.
And then you had. So is it? They were 5 pence of real money then.
Yeah, I think so. To be honest,
our reporter in the field, Andy Bob, ladies and gentlemen.
I mean, to be honest, right? There was a lot of alcohol. There was a hell of a lot of alcohol. So I can kind of remember from Friday night arriving and then going home Sunday. Like, there's a bit of a blur in the middle, to be honest. But I mean, for £100,
that sounds good.
It was actually a lot of fun.
See, this is quite amusing because for those that don't know, we have been not just chatting. We are planning the sequel to Operation Phoenix. So it's going to be an invite-only event, and that is not a cliquey thing. That's just purely so that we can make sure that we've got people who will be in the right roles for the right things. So if you are interested in that, when it starts happening, let us know. Have a chat with us, and then because we want to make sure that we've got basically the right mindset of people in the game, because there was a few problems last time where people didn't quite understand what they kind of booked on for. We need to be a little bit careful because this one's going to be a free game as well, so there won't be any cost for this one. It's going to be just an invite-only game, just a private game on that front, because we're looking to take that idea to a later event, basically. So it's kind of like a little bit of a beta test, effectively. But I've been thinking about an in-game currency, and I've been mulling it over and chatting it with people about whether we could do something similar. So I'd be very keen to discuss that with you, Andy, later. Like maybe.
Oh, there's a few things that I want to throw in. There's a few things that I want to throw.
We're not having dinosaurs.
No dinosaurs. No, nothing silly. But I think it will work. I think it will work really well, and it will add a really interesting take to Airsoft. And I will admit I've 100% stolen it from this LARP event, but twisted it ever so slightly so it fits Airsoft.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I went to an actual Airsoft event this last weekend. I went to the Battle Sim at Apocalypse Airsoft in Kent. So it's just located south of Sittingbourne, and it is a fantastic site to get to if you ever have the opportunity. The only challenge with the site is there is a massive hill between the car park and the main game zone. But once you've kind of got up the hill, and hopefully you don't need to go back down because you've forgotten everything, so make sure you're squared away before you leave the car. Get up the hill, and it's a cracking site. You've got loads of different game zones.
Yeah, it's a really good site.
Just the marshalling there is really good. You know, you've got lots of different scenarios and sort of places to go. Maybe the wood ants are probably a little bit of a challenge. So there are certain areas of the ground at that site where I wouldn't die and fall to the ground just because the ground is moving with ants and like in certain places. Oh, it was not bad, but it's just the ant colonies have clearly taken over. Like if that was like a microcosm of some sort of apocalypse, you'd kind of think, oh God, the ants have literally taken over the world. But I mean, there's great mounds, and it's literally just ants. Like
really,
the density is that you can't see the mound underneath the ants. They're just that crawling around. So hi, Callsign Samurai and Phil. Morning, Phil. But the event, so the Battle Sim event, it was based on the premise of the event was ultimately the British Empire was recolonizing the world, and they were moving into Eastern Europe. So the scenario of site is that we were based somewhere. I think it was called Somewhereistan, which was quite a nice play. It wasn't taking itself too seriously on that front. And then there was a kind of a British military element that was kind of moving into the area, and it was the kind of the storyline aspect was very much Star Wars, from the premise of you've got an imperialized military force that are kind of imposing their will on the area, and then the Op4 were effectively playing civilians that slowly became resistance rebel fighters.
Right. Yeah.
So it wasn't Star Wars from the premise of there were aliens running around or Jabba the Hutt or anything like that. It just
but you had a rebel alliance.
There was a rebel alliance, yes. Yeah. Yeah, just running around with lightsabers and stuff like that.
Just running up to someone and
yeah. So the event itself was really good, to be honest with you. It was their second battle sim that they have run. There was an interesting mix of players. So there wasn't your normal kind of MilSim scenario scene of people there, if that makes sense. For those that go to a lot of the more, I don't want to say hardcore MilSims, but you know what I mean, like the likes of like Sterling or Defiant, those sorts of companies, Octo, for example. You go to those events, you usually see the same sort of MilSim players there. You get a few new faces sort of here and then, and sort of people kind of drift out and drift back in, but ultimately you kind of get MilSimmers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas with the Battle Sim, there was a strong mix of MilSim players and skirmishers, which was ultimately because it was a Battle Sim run at a local site. People at the local site were invited to come on the basis of, it's basically like a full day's game rather than just your normal skirmish day. So it was a really good opportunity to meet some fresh players, obviously getting into Sim for the first time. That kind of had its own balance in that, it probably wasn't a serious event, if that makes sense. So I've been to some events, for example, where you are expected to properly portray a role. If you're having a muck about and stuff like that, it's kind of quite strictly frowned upon. It kind of takes out the immersion from that perspective. But I mean, there was one guy, for example, that every time he got shot at, he went, "Woo!" and ran away. Which, I mean, if that's how you want to play it, that's how you want to play it. But from like a MilSim perspective, that's quite jarring for me personally. But hey ho, maybe I'm an elitist MilSim snob at this point. I don't know.
We've got to that stage then.
Well, that's what I genuinely thought at this event. I was sitting there thinking, there used to be this problem in MilSim with like elitism and stuff like that, and I feel that has gone away. But then I was sitting there thinking, has it gone away, or have the elitist snobs that I thought that's who they were have left the sport or whatever? And then we've just sort of filled the gap. So we're now sitting there going, "Oh, I can't believe this is MilSim."
No, I generally think it has gone away. I just think, but there's things that happen on skirmish days where you just think, oh, really? Like, I understand. It's like a skirmish day, you are more than welcome to do and dress up as whatever you want. For me personally, if I'm all in camo and I'm trying to hide, and then I see Bugs Bunny or some anime character run past me, I kind of go,
"Thanks, sorry,
really?
Thanks, James. You're not elite."
He's Spec Ops.
Yeah. No, you're right though. The whole Bugs, like, there are certain, like, if someone runs around in like a Predator costume or something like that, it's just like, yeah, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's some people have some absolutely wicked looking costumes and loadouts and stuff like that. But if you're at an event that's like you're portraying certain things, it's a bit strange sometimes.
Yeah. But that's not elite.
But the event as a whole,
that's just personal. Yeah. Personal icks, I think the kids call it now, isn't it? Icks.
I don't know. I'm not down with the kid jargon.
Is
it sick? Six good now? Six
good. Six always been good. Sick, bruv.
Anyway, so the event as a whole was
sorry, yeah.
The event was basically so it kind of kicked off at around 8 o'clock and rolled through to about 8-9 o'clock. So it's a good sort of 12 hours gameplay.
Yeah.
And there wasn't kind of a pause or anything sort of throughout the day. There was obviously some up and down time. It was a really hot day. I know that a lot of the
weekend for it,
Blue 4 struggled because the stockade, they've taken out a lot of the roofing that was on the sort of original stockade structure. So it's an awful lot more exposed now. And I think that there was an element of, making sure that you had enough water and kind of getting out the sun. So I know that they struggled with that a little bit. But there was lots of opportunity for immersion and the role play aspect. For me, I turned up with my Reverend Julian Banjo costume that we had at Operation Phoenix. So that was good. The hollowed out Bible was utilised for Mark V grenades. So that was quite handy. We held a sermon basically just outside the enemy fob, and distributed a few grenades, of which at one point there were one member of our team who I will refuse to name, but he knows who he is, decided to lob his grenade directly at the ground and killed us all. So Julian Banjo didn't last long. So I had to, I then swapped into my beggar costume, which is a brilliant role play, by the way.
Was it one of our listeners?
It was one of my family, as it turns out, and you may know him.
Rookie mistake.
Absolute. Anyway, so if you are at a immersion based game, I highly recommend getting some old raggy cloths type. You know, we've bought them for various events in the past, and it's basically like a massive shemag. I mean, we're talking, you know, maybe like a 2 meters by 2 meters shemag that you can kind of wrap around and you can scrim up or however you want to deal with it. But I've used this quite successfully now at an Octo game and this last game where I don't talk, I'm a mute as a character, and I can just be an absolute pain in the arse. It's just really, really frigging funny. The Blue 4 guys didn't know what to do with me. At one point, I'm literally sitting outside their main gate for their stockade. They're sort of being really secure and closing the gate and making sure no one comes close, and yet have completely ignored the beggar that is sitting directly outside their gate. At one point, I had comms on me so I could relay through our earpiece back some information. Another point, me and the policeman, played by Wayne, he brought me back to the stockade, and we got right up to the main gate, and then we were starting to lob pyro from the main gate, of which I did kill myself. So I can't completely have a go at David for that.
So
one.
It's a family trait then.
It's a family trait. We can't throw grenades. So yeah, anyway, it was just a cracking event from that perspective. It did get a little bit more skirmishy in the afternoon. The Apocalypse site has some kind of good locations of kind of key game areas. So you've got the stockade, got Barter Town, the fuel depot that I think has now changed to something else. There's a village, a burnt out Jeep, and a comms hut, and sort of various places that you can maneuver. The Woodland site has recently been logistically felled, for lack of a better term, in terms of, you know, the lumberjacks have clearly been in. They've taken a load of the stuff out. So there's now a different dynamic in terms of some of the game zones and where you can play and where you can get to.
So is that a forestry thing, or is that a site thing? Have they
not sure
to make it more open?
Not sure. I think it's a forestry thing. It's a forestry thing because an awful lot of the shittier piles of crap were still left behind. Right, and I do worry that if that doesn't get sorted out by the game site soon, that's the sort of thing that would end up being just an impassable barrier, because you'll get all the weeds growing into it and all the nettles and brambles and stuff like that. But these things were set up almost in dead straight lines, which means that you're going to have a problem from a gameplay perspective, because you've effectively got maybe a 2 meter high impassable barrier running along quite a large stretch of your field, for example. So it's just a thought, you know, it might be something that they need to look into to kind of get sorted out and maybe utilize. You could obviously kind of maze it out a little bit to kind of create some gaps and stuff. Towards the afternoon, it became a bit more skirmishy in terms of it was just a force-on-force event at that point. You know, capture location A while the other team defend. It was very clear that that information was being fed by the game organizer to the commanders of each team, which to me is a bit frustrating. And it's something that I've picked up in our TL list that will come up in a little bit. And there was also a challenge with communication between the game organisers and the players. So, for example, it was very evident towards the end in the debrief whereby the win conditions of the game were different, and various people were saying, well, I was given a completely different set of win conditions. For example, there was money that you could capture that we were told, you know, added points, etc., etc., etc. At one point towards the end of the game, we were tasked with clearing the site of the imperialist forces. We did that. We got all the way through the site right up to the village, and then we launched an assault on the village, which was their main fob at that point. But they'd apparently been told it was Index, even though Index wasn't for another 15, 20 minutes. So that was a challenge. Yeah, and at which point, obviously, you've got disgruntled players kind of moaning at you, and there was some slightly confusing rules, and there was a couple of situations where in-game players who were part of the DS team, for all extent and purposes, they were giving advice, and there was one particular scenario which caused a bit of grief where I was directly involved, and I've apologised to anyone that's watching if that was a problem for you. But I was given some advice in terms of how I could play a certain scenario, what was going on. The players outside the building I was in were given different information, and that caused a bit of an argument, which is obviously you don't want that. And I'm not there trying to cause grief, but I know I wasn't. But it's a bit of a challenge. So, but as a whole, it was actually really enjoyable.
So out of 10 NoFo foxes, how many foxes would you
give it a strong I give it a strong 6, which is quite a good score. I know it doesn't seem good, but to me, that first half of the day, huh? Did you say this is their second event that they've done with this.
Ain't too bad for their only second event.
For me, there was just those kind of gripes that kind of let it down. And I spoke to the organizer about it, and this isn't like me just bitching publicly about it. This is, this is all stuff that I've discussed with them at the event. So hopefully I haven't said anything out of turn. And by all means, have a chat with me afterwards if there is, and the like. But yeah, a good 6. And interestingly, we're going to be launching next week our MilSim scoring index system, which is not a score of how good an event is. It's just an indication as to how MilSim-y a MilSim is, if that makes sense. So we'll explain that next week. We've just got to do the final little tweaks to the system this week.
It's the MilSim-y love chart thing that you see in magazines.
Yeah, basically.
Is it like that?
It's not too far off.
Is it? Yeah. I haven't seen it yet, by the way.
No, well, this is one of the things I need this weekend for you to. You need to comment on it.
I will comment.
Right, so let's move on. We're already 20 minutes in. Let's now chat about team leader skills in Airsoft.
AI 500. Oh, sorry, what?
Oh, yeah. I was going to mention this. This was actually no. This was a news thing I wanted to mention.
We'll give it 5 minutes.
Yeah. So AI 500. I mean, it was best summarized by the screenshot of the. Yeah, it was. There's so much dislike for AI. I don't think I've ever been to an AI 500 event or seen an AI 500 event run where immediately afterwards, within like the next 2 weeks, there's not fucking bitching about it online. Like,
I mean, it wasn't even 24 hours. I mean, there was bitching on the Saturday. Right?
But you compare the likes of, you compare the likes of any other events company. Right now, to clarify, at that side, Andy and I weren't there.
No,
right? We haven't been to the event, so we can't comment on whether it was a good or bad event. We have been to AI 500 events, and we can definitely comment on them. And if you watch previous videos, we have commented on them.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen an events company that, and this was one of the comments. Ian was saying, a load of people left Saturday lunchtime. Apparently, one of the comments that was raised was, it's not our fault as the game organisers, it's your fault as the players, which is exactly
standard
reticent of a comment that was made at the Citadel. I can't remember if it was the first or second, which was, we have your money. We don't care if you want to go, if you want to ruin the day, that's fine. That's down to you. And you're like, you're the event organizer. Like, it's your...
I mean,
what is going on?
I mean, I definitely think, and now we have a patch. Now we have a sticker person. I definitely feel there are going to be some stickers at Shifty Riffs this year.
We can't have.
Oh, we can.
We're not going to have. No, we're not going to have defamatory stuff. But ultimately,
what? It's not our fault. It's yours as a sticker. I guarantee the listeners will put a thumbs up.
Maybe that's not as bad as long as it's not heavily. I don't want to brand anything along the lines of causing upset. But yeah, if you had a really good time at AI 500, crack on. If you didn't, I'm sorry.
Yes, because
but in all honesty, there's been enough warnings. There's been enough chat about it online. Do your research on this events company. The only reason that I would ever book on again is just because they do have some really cool venues, and just the opportunity to get somewhere and get your kit on and get some cool photos.
I mean,
and maybe get a bit of airsoft in.
The only thing that I will book on an A500 is at two places. One, if it's a disused like aircraft carrier or battleship or ship, like big ship, like cruise ship, booking on.
Yeah, but Andy, it's not our fault that it sank. It's yours.
Yeah. Space station. Like, that's it. Like, I'm telling you now, they're the two that I will only ever book on.
Oh my God, imagine a space station with airsoft. That'd be amazing. What's your range? Infinite. Infinite range. You fire a BB at a wall and it just keeps going. Oh, right. Anyway, we're now going to talk about the team leaders' skills. So the first off, we've tried to break this list down into kind of a rough pre-event / patrol during your patrol / combat engagement, and then after your patrol, kind of like a debrief type thing. It's very loosely a kind of 10-10-10 split. So we'll get about halfway through, and then we'll pick up the rest of them in the second part of this. So if all goes well, we will have a two-parter, and hopefully we won't whisk through them too quickly. The first one that you need to achieve as a TL, and that's team leader, we're going to call it TL, is you need to understand your objective. So this is the area of your operations, aka the AO. The time frame, how your unit fits into the wider task force, and don't just rely on what an event organizer tells you at the briefing. Ask questions, clarify boundaries, and ensure that where and when success is measured. So this goes back to the event of the weekend, where you need to know what you are trying to achieve. You need to know what the rules are of what you can do, and you need to basically know what the win condition is. So, for example, if you are told at the beginning of the event, your win conditions include picking up money, collecting drugs, killing HVTs, etc., then you need to know that when you spot money, that's a target. If you find drugs, that's a target. If you've got HVTs, you need to know who they are, or at least, you know, who you're trying to look for, and then label as HVTs. And then impart that information to your team. Do not just hold that and assume that everyone else knows what's going on, because I guarantee you, airsoft team leaders are the equivalent of shepherds with cats. Right? You are just herding cats. They will want to go everywhere. You will find that you allocate someone to go somewhere, and they are all of a sudden standing next to you, and you're like, well, why are you there? I was told to follow you. Okay, that's me. That's fine.
I am one of the cats, but no, like, genuinely, it's so important for you as TL to have the information and retain that information. It's the amount of events, and Mike's been on them as well, where we've had a TL. They've been given information from like a quick debrief, come back, and then just sat down and started having dinner. And like, we're all sitting there and we're like, oh, right, nothing's happened then. And then they'll get up and they'll be like, right, get your kit on, we got to go. And you're like, the fuck? Right? Yeah. Like, genuinely, like, what are we doing?
You know, yeah. If you've got a rotor, you're told that there's going to be a tasking at 1 o'clock. All of that information, you need to be making notes down. You know, take your notepad in, take notes, make sure that you give that information to your team. Now, that doesn't have to be that you have to run a classroom-like debrief session every time that you're told everything. It might be just a case of you brief your 2IC and delegate for them to do it, you know, because that means as well that if your 2IC is able to tell someone else, they've understood it. If you're there when they're explaining it, if they haven't understood it, it gives a chance to make sure that they understand, because your 2IC is also effectively your second. Well, they are your second in command, but they need to be your right hand. You know, if you're running around and you don't know what your right hand's doing, you're going to be in an absolute state. So make sure you know what you're doing, basically. Yeah. That's the main thing. And then you've got half a chance at least.
But also, I think also as well, and this happens a lot where people they want to try the TL position and they want to be in charge, which is fair enough. I understand that everyone needs to try everything, in my opinion, at least once. But you get the people that do it and then go, like, they don't like public speaking, or they don't like talking to groups, or they don't actually like giving people commands. And it's hard at a sim event because everyone's paid to be there to have a laugh, basically. And some people think, oh, well, I can't tell them what to do. So when 2 or 3 of their guys wander off, the TL just sits there and goes, all right, that's fine. We'll sort something out. But it's not, you've got to have, we've personally, for me, I've paid to have that realistic chain of command.
Yeah. You don't have to be a twat about it.
No, you don't have to go, oi,
like, you don't have
get back fucking over here and sit on my lap.
Yeah.
Like you just go, guys, where are you going? We might be going out in like 15, 20 minutes. Or can you let me know, or take your radio with you so I can communicate, like, so I can get you back if needed. Like most people, most players would be like, yeah, that's fine. That's all cool. But it's just having that confidence to actually, when I say confront, I don't mean confront, but like question.
You need to deal with it. If you don't deal with it, you've lost team cohesion straight away.
Yeah.
And it might be that you need to go down the route of this is where parenting comes in. Basically, you can't just, from my understanding, I'm not an expert on parenting at all. This is all team leadering. But you can shout at a 3-year-old until the cows come home. It doesn't always solve the problem. Sometimes it helps just to go, right, what are you trying to do? Where are you going? Why are you going there? And they'll tell you, and then you can explain, okay, but why? Why do you need to go look at the cows over there? Like, how long are you going to be? You're not going to be that long, right? Come back after you're done. You've got a couple of minutes. Go and do it. And you can help them, because sometimes players will want to just go off and do their own thing because they are feeling isolated from the rest of your team. It might be that you are, and this is more prevalent when you've got like bigger teams that comprise of like multiple little booking clusters. So you've got like a group of 4 that have booked on with a group of 2, for example. The group, you know your mates, you know who you're going to be playing with and stuff like that, but you've got to include the other players.
Yes. But
if you were booked on as a small cluster, you can't just fucking sit back and just hope that it's all going to be all right. You also have to integrate with the other team. So it's a 2-way street, but just blend together. Because if you can do that and you can find out what's going on, you're going to have a much better day.
It's like peanut butter and jelly. It shouldn't go, but it does. Sort of.
Yeah.
But as a TL, it's but as a TL, it's down to you to kind of like, if you see, like, personally, I hate TLing, like, because that's not the role that I enjoy. I enjoy being a support gunner or a door kicker. They're my 2 main roles. Give me anything else, I'm shit at it. But on the rare occasions that I do end up as TL, you've got to kind of keep your eye on everyone within your section or your squad to make sure that people are including each other. Like, there's been a couple of events where I've had one or 2 players book on, and like then I've had like 2 teams of 5, and the individual players don't really like mold themselves together. So a tactic that I tend to enjoy is, right, everyone grab a brew, sit round and have a chat. Like, I don't want to see you on your own. And that it's a bit of forced love in a way. But sometimes it's needed, just so, because also as well, if you're not gelling within your FOB or your main camp, or even in the car park, if you're not gelling at that point, the chances of you working together out in the field is slim to none. So getting ahead of it quick, and like, say, like, everyone sit down and have some breakfast, like, but you're in this section. I don't want you wandering off and having your breakfast. You're all sitting together. And it does work, because when you're all together, having someone sit there quietly doesn't work.
Well, not with us about.
No. But this is why when we're like and we've said it before, when we've booked on with organisers for events, we've said, look, if you've got individuals or you've got people that are on their own and you need to stick them somewhere, stick them with us. Because we're quite open. Christ, we sit here every Wednesday and chat.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, but it is a two-way street. Like I am more than happy to help out new players and stuff like that.
Oh, you can only do so much.
But you've got to bring it to the table as well. Like, and it's the same with any social interaction on that front. But let's move on to point 2. So when you're briefing the team, we've established that you need to know the mission and the objective. You now need to brief your team. And this is a structure that I've only recently just become aware of, which is the SMEAC. This is going to be another one of these things that I don't know how to pronounce. SMEAC system or format.
SMAC.
So there's an E in the middle of that. SMEAC. SMEAC. But this is used by militaries. This is used by first responders and the like. But it stands for situation. So S is for situation. What's the enemy doing? What's the terrain? What is the terrain like? What's the weather? What are the other friendlies nearby? Ultimately set the scene. M stands for mission. What are we doing? We're going to go and secure and hold a building A from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Fine. You're giving them timings. You're giving them the location. You're giving the intel as to what you are doing. Then the execution. How are you going to do that? Give an idea of your formations, phases of movement, potential likely contact scenarios, contingencies, extra timings. So, for example, it might be a case of, right, we're going to be progressing to location 1 or building. We'll go assaulting building A. We'll call it. So we're going to move to building C first. We're going to be there from 2 o'clock. Building B, we're going to move at 3 o'clock. And that way we can hit building A and secure it and hold that from 4 till 6. Talking about your contingencies, our fallback position is that rally point, for example. And then, you're explaining how you're basically going to undertake that task. And that might be where you have an explanation of any delegated responsibilities. So, for example, if you're going to be breaking your section down, I don't know, say you've got 12 players in your team and you're going to be breaking them down into 2 fire teams, you might allocate fire team leaders for those smaller fire teams. So we'll call those FTLs. I don't know if they're called FTLs, but that just made sense to me when I was writing this out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Because we don't have captains or lieutenants or anything like that in Airsoft, and I wouldn't want to take it down that route. But you've got a fire team leader, and then you've effectively got your section leader or your team leader, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So once you've established how you're going to do it, you then need to talk about your admin and logistics. So that's the A. So talking about ammo count, water, food, pyro, casualty procedures, rally points, and med rules. You probably don't need to be discussing the rules and the like, but it does help if you've got an idea of how much food and water that people need to take. So, for example, if you're going to be going on a tasking that's 6 hours long, you as the TL and your 2IC need to be making sure that your team have enough food and water.
Yeah.
But I fully appreciate. Go on.
Sorry, there are rules that as well that you need to like, especially for Blue 4 players that tend to have like quite strict engagement rules. Sometimes if you are doing a raid or you are like going into a known hostile area, the rules might change. You might be able to shoot people if they are deemed a threat. If they're carrying radios, if they're like, so having a good understanding before you go out is massive. Because if you turn around and lamp someone from a distance because they got a radio and then you get called back because you've killed a civilian and you weren't meant to be shooting anyone, that's a massive thing against your section. So having the rules in place is knowing your ROEs and stuff like that. Yeah,
your rules of engagement. Yeah. I'm being shouted at by various people in the chat about my terminology with fire team leaders and team leaders. I want to just establish that I am yet to go to an event that has a fully, properly organised structure. Because I have been to an event where the TL was basically the entire platoon commander. I've been to events where you've got just a CO, so that's basically your commander for your whole team, being the overarching team. Callsign Samurai says you've got your squad leader and your team leader, who's your fire team leader. So that's fine, get that. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, again, if you are taking on the role of TL for a larger group or multiple squads or something like that, then obviously we're gonna just refer to it as team leader for the moment on the basis of a small-ish section or your squad. I'm not an expert on military tactics. I appreciate we've got listeners in the US that will have their own way of doing it. We've got Brits who've got, I'm more aware of. We've got Danish listeners who probably have some Hergen-Flurgen team.
We've got a Russian.
There's a Russian. There's a couple Ukrainians and stuff like that listen. So, yeah, I mean, Terry says you can have your 2IC. So, yes, you could have your 2IC as your secondary fire team leader. You don't have to. How you break down your squad ultimately is down to you. I wouldn't suggest that you've got a 2IC, a 3IC, a 4IC, and that ultimately everyone in your team is at a command level, because that would just be a nightmare. But it does help, if you've got an allocated structure as to, and maybe just as a thought, maybe when you go to these events, you have a little kind of hierarchy tree so you can explain who or what your titles and stuff are.
Did you just
it does vary.
Say make it into a pyramid scheme?
Not a pyramid scheme, but maybe an organogram might help.
Organogram.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's. I always find it more. You get more out of your team if the 2IC and the 1IC are on the same team, or if they know each other. It doesn't matter if the rest know each other or anything at all, but if the 2IC and the 1IC play regularly and know what the other person's going to be doing, if you do split up into a team, you've got more understanding of what your 1IC is going to want from you. Whereas if, say, for example, I was put on the team and someone that I didn't know how they played was 1IC, that's where it breaks down a little bit, because I think it should be done this way. He thinks it should be done another way. But I think if you play together, you kind of have an understanding. You play the same sort of way anyway. You have the same sort of baseline tactics and things like that. And so I think if you were ever to need to split your section, you should always have it. It doesn't even, like you said, it doesn't have to be the 2IC. But as long as the person in charge of one fire team, and the other section fire team, as long as the two people that are in charge of those two fire teams play regularly, you're going to have a better chance of getting more out of the op, as it were.
Can I just say, Roscoe is now WhatsApping me memes of "We have your money." Can you stop it? Yeah, I mean so Terry's comment on the 2IC taking over a secondary fire team. The point I'd like to make there is I have been in numerous scenarios where, cool, that's fine. Your main team structure is divided into two. I'm the 1IC for the whole squad. I then get hit, but my 2IC is now managing a fire team over there. So now this group of people have no leadership. They immediately go, oh, I don't know what's going on. So you need to have a rough idea as to, who's going to take over. And it might just be, right, we're a group of 4 left. Our leadership is all dead. Right, you're taking command. And that just naturally happens because everyone at this point knows all the brief. We've explained that. Right? The main TL has explained that to you. You now fully understand everything. You've made your own notes. You should just be as capable of picking that up and running with it. So that's a handy thing to have. So that's why, I mean, whoever your 2IC is, however your team breakdown is set up, that's fine, but just make sure everyone knows it. That's the thing. Don't have it as like some sort of secret code that has to be deciphered. Right, so we covered situation. We've covered situation, mission, execution, the admin and logistics, and now C interestingly, so I found a couple references to the RAF cadets today that use the SMEAC system or format. They use C as a different thing. But I'm going to go with the one that I'm aware of, which is command and signals. So who is in charge? Who takes over if they're out? What are our call signs and frequencies? And what's our password? So, for example, if you're using at night time a call and repeat system, it might be that you're using the plus system, i.e., right, we're going to, the number's 11. If I shout 6, the repeat sign would be 5 because that adds up to 11. So that way you're aware of what's going on and you know all the call signs and codes and you're aware, everyone is completely up to speed with what's going on. The only aspect to briefing the team that's not covered in SMEAC, we've got to come up with a different name for this, but it works, is this is where you need to set the tone. So I think we've just, we've all agreed it's a game.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's a game. We're not taking this too seriously. But there are times where I know I've been frustrated when you're out on a patrol and people behind you are just having a natter. And it's really fucking loud. And there's nothing worse than when you're out on a quiet patrol, you're trying to find out what's going on. And then people are just basically having a jolly walk through the woods, chatting to each other. Because it carries and it's frustrating. It's going to give you a position away. So whilst I'm not against fun, I'm not. But you need to have the appropriate tone. Ultimately, if you want to just go and have a walk through the woods and a natter, fucking go down the pub or go out for a walk in the woods with your best mate. I've got a problem with that. Do it in the fob where you relax, you're chilling out.
Mm-hmm.
If you're out playing in a MilSim, you want it to be immersive, and you're trying to take the game seriously, then just keep it tight.
Yeah. I mean, we've all paid.
This was a phrase this was a phrase that was thrown up by someone because I was reading some other documents. A sloppy mission briefing causes problems in the field. So don't be sloppy.
Don't be sloppy. I mean, at the end of the day, this might sound a little bit elitist, but and it doesn't mean to be. But if everyone that's gone to a MilSim has paid the money for that experience. So if it's a quiet patrol or like a real like light kit, so you're going out with literally just like a chest rig and your primary and your secondary, and you are trying to be as quiet as possible. Everyone else in that section, other than the two people that are just chatting, then in my opinion, turn around and tell them to shut the fuck up. Because yeah, fair enough, they've played it to have their to enjoy it, but then if you're ruining it for the other 6 guys or girls that are there, then there is a point where you kind of have to turn around and go, look, shut the fuck up, we're trying to be quiet. If you're not going to do it, head back now.
And don't get me wrong, there'll be situations where you aren't on a quiet patrol. If you're this doesn't just apply to a task force style role. There is nothing to stop you from any Op4 event or cartel or whatever faction you're playing. You can still have a proper structure and just tailor it to whatever your role's doing. So it might be a case of go, right, we're going to be Op4. We're basically here to be a pain in the arse so we don't need to have sound and light discipline. That's fine. It's not a problem. Just make sure people are aware. So if you're going to be going out on a patrol or certain tasking, it's worth just mentioning, right, we need to be quiet on this one. I don't want to hear excess chatter over the radio, people fighting about and just basically being a pain. But there might be times where that's absolutely fine. Yeah. So it's useful to brief. Right, number 3, conduct equipment checks. So this is really important to build into your team's standard operating procedure. You need to confirm that radios are functional and on the correct frequency. And it's worth just having a quick mic check, radio comms check, anything like that with your team, just to make sure that at least... Yeah,
it's going to fail.
It is going to fail, but it's worth checking if it's going to fail within 30 meters of each other. Yeah. Because if it's going to fail then you've got no hope in chance of it working when you're 200 meters away from each other. But at least check everyone's on the right frequency and everyone's got, the right RCS and CTCSS and all that stuff. So, Make sure everyone's carrying enough water.
Sorry, the main one for comms is your radio. If you've got a separate comms officer or comms person, that is the one. Yeah, that needs to be the one person that you need to make sure that radio does not go down. In my opinion, it doesn't matter if one guy's radio isn't working. You work that out as a buddy system, so he doesn't move away from the other person who's got comms. If you have radio issues, that's within your section. That's fine. You can work around it, but the one person that cannot lose comms is your radio operator.
Yeah.
If you've got a separate one, like if it's the one IC or two IC.
Well, we're coming on to point 4 is assigning roles and delegate effectively, because Paulus Wales is also suggesting that you delegate. So hold your horses, guys. We're getting there. The main thing is making sure people are carrying enough water. This weekend was a cracking example of you're hot, you're out in the sun, you need to be taking enough water. I took 4 litres of water with me, and that was gone by lunchtime. And I didn't piss all day, so it was a hot day.
Yeah,
right?
It's roasting.
You're getting sweaty, you're going to be burning that water off. Ammo, pyro, make sure that's all restocked and everything like that. Make sure people have dead rags, appropriate amount of bandages. The little kind of caveat is don't carry their kit for them. Carry the responsibility of making sure that they've brought the right kit. Right?
And if you're out for a long period of time, food.
Yeah.
Like little snacks.
Just make sure they're squared away.
Yeah.
Battle rattle, that's another thing to check for. If you're going out on a patrol, establish a patrol order so people know who's in front of them and who's behind. We've set this up before where we only had 3 night vision on a section of 12. So we, as I think you were my 2IC on that one.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
The EA one. We put the guy with the best night vision at the front, the guy with the second best in the middle, and the third best at the end.
Yeah, I was
with the theory that we could then at least we could see what's ahead of us. We've got a rough idea of what's behind us, and if the guy ahead of the front man gets killed, at least there's someone in the middle that can still see at night.
Yeah,
that's the main thing. So all these little things just build into your pre-battle, pre-patrol, pre-deployment checks, and it's useful to know. Right, assigning your roles and delegating effectively. So we talked about a leadership structure already, but you need to build a leadership structure that's appropriate for your team size. So again, if you're a 4-man team, don't have all 4 of you being ICs because it's just silly. You can have all of them being LMGs. That's not a problem, but just don't have it so that you've got a 1 IC, a 2 IC, a 3 IC, and a 4 IC because it's pointless. There's no benefit to that. But if you're managing a team of 50 players, then you might want to break them down into 10-man teams, in which case you are going to have 5 TLs of those sections, and then whatever you want to call yourself, and just make sure that everyone knows how that's kind of spread out.
God.
Keeping it simple for a smaller squad or anything like that. You've got your 2 IC, so they are kind of roughly down to managing admin, morale, can take over your role if you're occupied or taken out, acts as your sounding board and ensures the team is combat ready when you're preoccupied. So you go off as your TL to go and do a mission briefing. Your 2 IC is now responsible for your team to make sure that they are ready if you're about to run out. So it might be a case of they now take on all of those checks that we just talked about in terms of your battle rattle, your water, your ammunition, and everything like that. So that when the TL comes out, quick briefing, cool, right, we're ready to go.
Everything. And doing it together as well is another. Don't say to it like it. When I did it last, I literally got everyone together and was like, right, everyone check each other's equipment, make sure that you've got enough water. Do it amongst yourselves. Don't just wander off and check your own kit, because you might think, oh, that's only a little bit of sloshing around with a canteen. That's fine. I've got enough water in there. But if someone else turns around and pulls you up on it, it's a really good way of doing it. Getting every single person to check each other, because peer pressure is always best in my opinion.
System as well.
But it's not.
If you haven't got the capability of, say, there's only like 3 or 4 of you, that's easy to do. If you've got a larger team, just buddy off. Have your buddies sitting there. running through your kit with your buddy to make sure that you're both prepared. And it might be that you're sharing equipment. So it might be that one of you is carrying a mortar tube with a load of rounds. So you're carrying a bit of extra water to offset their weight, so that you're not having one person that's significantly impeded with loads of extra weight.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. 2IC, RO, they'll be managing your external comms with other teams in HQ. They need to make sure they keep a notepad with key grid reference codes and sitrep logs, which we'll come on to in a bit in terms of sitreps. And then again, I've called them FTLs, however you want to break it down, but in squads of sort of 6 to 12, split into teams of 3 to 5, with experienced players taking the lead on that role. So there is no point having someone that has never been to a MilSim before, putting them in a command position, because they are going to struggle. By all means, 2IC, maybe a 3IC if they're learning for the first time and they're getting used to that. But don't just accept someone's overconfident.
Yeah,
I'll have a go. It's fine. Because
obviously there are exceptions to that rule. Obviously, if Tim that just left Sandhurst comes and plays, you kind of go,
granted.
Yeah, okay, maybe you could lead a section.
But then again, still, it's airsoft. We obviously. I'm not in any way suggesting that the real steel world isn't sufficient for airsoft or MilSim, because hands down it probably is. But all I'm suggesting is that there are tactics and plays within airsoft that work better. Because for example, the one thing like barn dooring, I think that's where you've got a load of guys walking down a track in sort of a staggered or sort of column formation, 2 column, either side of the road. And then you start barn dooring to get out of there. I can see that working really effectively within a proper real steel combat scenario where you are significantly further down range from the enemy.
Yeah.
Up close, to me, if you've got a guy with an LMG that's waited until you're within 20 meters away, if you're faffing about trying to close the barn door and move back and peel and hold cover, etc., you're just going to lose everyone, because that LMG is not going to be spotted for a reasonable amount of time. They'll probably take out half your squad before you're able to effectively take that person out. Realistically speaking.
I find the one thing that I find quite interesting is a lot of World War II maneuvers, especially American World War II maneuvers, and how they dealt with like contacts. It was very rare that they pulled back until they got into their firing position, and that works really well for airsoft. Like doing a lot of the World War II tactics, like if you're in a diamond formation and you have your 1IC in the middle, wherever you've got contact, you've instantly got a line. So as soon as you get contact, that line comes down and starts firing and gives the rest of the section to get into position, and then that line falls back. It's a very good way of doing it. A lot of the tactics from World War II, especially for like the Ardennes offensive and things like that, it was you were shooting each other at airsoft distances. It was like 50-60 meters away from each other, and it really does show how important it is to have those sort of tactics in place. But then again, you're very much reliant on someone. I can say this to you because obviously in my reenactment background and the courses that I did in World War II history, but I'm not expecting Timmy from Sandhurst to have learnt that sort of stuff as well.
No, exactly. And that's what I mean. Like, you need to have, with smaller fire teams, I think just bear in mind of your experience of who you're putting on point with that team, basically. Right. Well, they manage the spacings here with your smaller team leaders. They'll kind of keep a tab on the smaller team of groups. So it might be that you've just got, right, can you just go check that your group's ready to go, your team's ready to go, and it's that further element of delegation. So it's not just relying on your 2IC to have to go and check everyone. It's not relying purely on a buddy system. You've actually got that kind of hierarchy there. So you might have I don't know, 5 fire teams.
Mhm.
You have a quick chat, right? 2 IC, can you just go and have a chat with all the fire team leaders and just make sure that they know what's going on and that everyone's squared away? Just speeds that process up, basically. But delegation ultimately empowers faster decision making and keeps the whole unit agile and responsive. So the more that people are empowered to know what they're doing, and it might be a case of, right, we've established as a team that as soon as we come under contact, we hunker down, and then we are going to bug out in terms of an order of ABC, for example. If people know what they're doing, that gives them a starter for 10. The number of times I've seen teams of players come under fire and just freeze, and then they just get slowly picked off by snipers because there's no decision making. There's no delegation. There's no, right, I need you to go and sort out the teams over there. Fire team leaders, take your squads out. It might be you're forming a defensive perimeter. Fire team leaders take a north, south, east, west. You've got 4 of them. Easy piff, easy enough. Allocate your players and go work that out. So, yeah, delegation makes your life easier.
Mm-hmm. But it's also knowing when to delegate as well.
Yeah.
If you're 1 IC and you're sitting around,
don't delegate everything.
Yeah, if you're sitting around and you're in camp and you're like,
can't be asked to do that.
Yeah, can you go and tell them to go and get their chow on because I can't be bothered? And your 2 ICs like ran ragged or some new player. You are now my runner for the weekend.
Don't be a twat about it. I think don't be a twat is a general rule throughout this list. We'll make that one of the points on the end. Don't be a twat.
Yeah.
Right. So establishing comms protocols. This number 5. Radio etiquette must be drilled in. So it's all good and well. We've had this with skirmish days. Oh yeah. This is Timmy. I'm behind the tree. There's 3 enemy players moving right to left. I don't know. We've had it before where 600 yards has been used. They're in the car park of the next field. Like, they're behind the tree. Or which tree are you at? Where are you? Which way are you looking? I don't know what's going on from that information. So you can set primary and secondary channels if you want to. It might be that you have with your RO, they're your designated contact with your HQ and your command structure. And it might be that you've got dual comms, for example, where you can talk to your 2 fire team leaders. So however you're going to have your comms plan, set that up and make sure it's all clear.
Yeah. Also code words and things like that.
Getting there. We're getting there.
That's what I thought it was all part of that.
Hang on, no, we're not done yet. Let me finish off let me finish off reading off my pre-prepared paragraph. Use call signs. Confirm who talks to who. So again, don't have it so that everyone's just chipping in left, right, and centre onto like some main radio channel because that's just going to clog it up. And ensure brevity codes are understood. Update the team regularly on the direction of 12 o'clock to maintain orientation, especially after turning or contact or anything like that. So as you are patrolling, it is so helpful if everyone in the team knows, right, you see the big tree ahead of us that's got a big plank leaning against it or something like that. That's our 12 o'clock. You see the church over on the left. That's our 12 o'clock. Because as soon as people know, and you don't want to be changing it every 2 seconds because that's going to be a nightmare. If it's changing from over there being a 12 and then over there being a 12 and then, directly forward and then all of a sudden behind you, that's confusing. But if people have an idea about roughly where your 12 o'clock sits, when they call out, this is Timmy, I've got enemy players on our 3 o'clock. Everyone knows, right, that was the 12 o'clock position. I now know that that's off to my right or my rear if you're over there, for example. So it gives you that idea about where they are. Because there's nothing worse than when you're sitting in the woods and someone goes, they're behind that tree. Okay.
But the 12 o'clock thing, it can fail very easily.
It can. As soon as no one knows where 12 o'clock is.
But even then, I've had the pleasure of meeting one of our newer generations that did not know what an analog watch looked like.
Okay.
So
this assumes competency.
Yeah. So this is where I say it can fail. And that's another thing as well. Like if you're going to use the 12 o'clock system, which by far, from my personal experience, is the best way to keep your bearings. If you turn up to an event, make sure that everyone knows what a analog watch looks like. If they don't know what an analog watch looks like, give them one. You should all have at least some sort of watch on you. Most people now have gone digital with like Fitbits and things like that. I still run an analog watch out on the game zone. If they don't know
into this episode, teach people how to read the time.
Yes.
I've had people shout 10 to 7 before. Like, I don't know what that means. One hand's up there and one hand's down there. Like, you know, so yeah, just keep it clear. I mean, you can use north, south, east, west, but ultimately not everyone knows the orientation of the, you know, of the compass in terms of your position on site. You know, if you're in a dense woodland, you can get turned around pretty quickly without knowing,
unless
without a compass or anything
like
that.
Compass.
Yeah. Bearings. I'll be honest with you, bearings are really good if you're in a proper static position. But again, if you're trying to delegate to a team of people that it's on a bearing or something like that, then telling them bearing, 160 degrees, that's harder for people to work out generally than saying, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, something like that. But communication is key. Try and get everyone to give an idea that when you're with your with your comms and everything like that. I was just wondering why you're waving at me.
I was waving at Daniel because he was late.
Oh, that's fine. Right, rally points and contingency plans. So we talked about this briefly earlier in terms of the SMEAC system, but assign fallback points, RVs for casualties and rally locations pre-mission. Consider secondary routes or extraction points and know what to do if the team is hit from the rear or if you're separated. So the biggest thing that this comes down to is when you've got players that are hit out, they go back to respawn. What do they do now? They can't get hold of you and the comms have failed. Do they stay and wait for you? Do they drift off into the game on their own? Where do they go? You've now moved off. They go back to the previous position where they got killed, but your team's had to move back for whatever reason. They've moved on to a different building. So establish at a rally point that it might be that, okay, right, we're going to set a rally point in building C. When there's 3 of you in building C, or you're aware of where the rest of the team are, move off to meet us so that you can get everyone clumped back together again, or at least achieve a suitable fighting force so that you're not just one person walking around on your top. It might be
a few times, like for me personally, I always think if you get dead and you have to go back to your respawn, i.e. your fob or your main camp, wait there. There's nothing worse than a player wandering off to try and rejoin the squad, and then the squad comes in 10 minutes later because they've been absolutely wiped. Because then you're going back out for a rescue mission to go and get the one lad that's walking around.
But the point, that's what I mean. So you wouldn't ever be on your own. So I wouldn't ever suggest just walking off to, but if you've set a rally point, that might be, say you've got a long, thin game zone and you've got your team's progressed to a location in the game zone and the respawn point's right at the back. You don't have to sit and wait back there because it's going to be a pointless exercise for your team to go all the way back there to pick you up to then bring you out again. Have a rendezvous point somewhere in the middle, so that you're back in the game zone, but you're just basically rallying until either your team move back to that position because shit's hit the fan. That's where they're going to rally back to, or 2 or 3 other players will come and join you. So at least then you've formed a small fire team that you can move back out again to go and find them. So you've got more numbers out and about. And that, ultimately with your comms hopefully working, if you can get close enough to them, even with proximity of maybe 3 or 4 players, they're more likely to hear you. You're not relying on one person's radio.
Yeah.
Because everyone's radios are different. An aerial on one person's radio might pick up something that another's doesn't. So that might just help you build that team back together and get that consistency going again. So, right. Knowing the terrain. So this is particularly important and handy if you are in a game zone that you have not played at before. We always have an ops board or an ops wall or something that has information taped to it. Try to consider operational security still. So if it is an area in which the enemy players can get to, do not post your comms frequencies or other important information on the wall, because that is a silly thing to do. Because all it takes is one person to wander in, take a picture, and now that information's compromised. Yeah. So don't do that. But you can have a map of the game zone. You can use in-game recon. You can have reports from returning players. So not dead players, but returning players. Feedback from adjacent teams and your own eyes to assess the routes, choke points, dead ground, and likely avenues of approach or a counterattack. So if you have identified where the enemy respawn is for whatever purpose, make a note of that, because that might affect your route planning for future game zones. Also not future game zones, sorry, future assaults. So again, we had a classic example this weekend. We assaulted the village, Apocalypse, from the line between the enemy respawn and the village. We knew that they would be coming back in for a counterattack. We failed to provide suitable rear security. We took the village. As soon as we took the village, we came under a counterattack from the team that had just respawned and then come straight in on our rear, which is just silly, basically. Because we'd come from that location. We were working on the basis that that was secure, but we didn't have any eyes behind us. So that's a very important thing to consider.
Also, like, it's massive to consider, like, not just spawn points, but like weapons caches. Like, you don't have to take them out or anything like that. Any sort of information needs to be relayed back to the rest, like to your TL at the end of the day, because your TL will pass that information along. If you just go, oh yeah, I spotted a landmine over there, and then don't tell anyone, and you go back, and then 10 minutes later, a patrol comes back and said, well, we just got wiped out by a minefield. You go, oh, yeah, I saw that earlier. Like, really, communication is massive. And it's down to the TL to transfer that information across as well. If you're given, as a TL, if you're given a bit of information, no matter how small it is, pass it on over to Zero, because Zero will have a better idea of what's going to be, what's meant to be happening.
And it might be a case of, right, we're going up against a team of players that we don't know that their loadouts or, you know, weapon capabilities or anything like that. Okay, I've gone through the game, and we've just been hit out by a ghillied sniper. My fire team's been wiped out by a ghillied sniper. That goes on the board. Doesn't matter if the enemy know that they've got a ghillied sniper on their team. Who cares? If you come across a tripwire, make a note of it. Right, possible tripwire. So if we're going to be going into an assault on a building, bear in mind, guys, when we move into this building, we need to keep an eye on tripwires. They might have seen them earlier in the game, but it's handy to have that little refresher just before you're going in on that assault to make sure that it's fresh in everyone's mind and to make sure that, you know, everyone is aware of the potential risks of what they're about to do. So Intel's key.
Yeah, Intel's massive. But also doing stuff with it. Doing stuff with it is
I've got all the information.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well done, you.
Don't hold on to it. Like they say, information is key. Yeah, it's key for everyone else, not just you. Haha. I've completed.
I've seen an enemy building that's full of enemy players. Cool. Could have known that before we stormed it. That would have been really handy.
Yeah.
But the other thing as well. The other thing as well is time. You know, if you're recording this information and feeding it back, things like when did you see it? Who did you see? What was the capability? And this is almost, it's not quite the SMIAC system. There's probably a different abbreviation for it. It's almost like a sit rep. I'll dig that out and we'll tie that in basically in terms of feedback reporting and the like. We talked about this next one earlier, but defining the mindset. So yes, you're here to have fun, but not to muck about. Make it clear early while morale matters, this isn't a camping trip. Poor discipline or lack of seriousness will lose the missions, cause friction, and kill any immersion.
Mm-hmm.
Your job as a TL is to help your team strike the right balance. So this comes back to, and I apologize to our American listeners, this is a more jokey thing in the UK. Don't be a cunt.
Yeah.
Right. Ultimately, you know, it's a game. We're there to have fun, and you can have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
But no one likes losing. And if you know you've launched this 1 hour assault, you've been super dead quiet, and all of a sudden some twat starts like singing because they're bored while on stag or something like that, your little kind of LUP, and it gives it away, and your team gets wiped. That is going to cause a problem between your team. You are going to have the arse with that player. So have fun, enjoy it, but take it seriously if you're going to go and do these things. And
I think
you can seriously have fun as well. I mean, the drug cartel, Andy, where we got arrested.
Oh yeah.
Right, we were taking that seriously, but we were having fun. I was.
Yeah. I wanted to sleep. And the only reason I got agreed to get captured because I wanted to go to bed. But no,
salute report. Like, that's it. Callsign Samurai. Thank you for that.
But it's the fact that it boils down to everyone's paid to be there. And if you are if you're the minority and you're ruining it for everyone else, then the chances are you're the one that's in the wrong. Is the way to look at it. If you're the one acting like a prat and setting off fireworks at 3 o'clock in the morning just to have a laugh, then you're the one in the wrong. Like, consider other people, but then it's down to the TL and the 2IC to kind of keep a lid on that and say, like, well, this guy's playing up a bit, he's clearly bored, let's give him some stuff to do. Like, let's get him more active. And I'm not saying being active or getting easily distracted is a bad thing, but as a TL or 2IC, it's down to you to keep that person sort of under control. And if they are getting bored, then say, look, there's a section going out there. Do you want to tag on with them and give them backup? Like, it's never going to be a problem. You dishing out team members to other teams if they just want to keep getting stuck, like keep getting involved. But then you also need to tell them, look, we're going to be like, if it's a full 48-hour sim, for example, you need to say, look, there'll be stuff going on tonight. Like,
slow it down. We've got a rest period.
There's a reason that we've been given a rest period. Probably because we're the knobheads that are going to be on stag and we're going to get lit up halfway through the night.
Yeah.
So rein it in, stuff will happen.
And you can have a joke and a laugh and stuff like that. But there are times where, you know, and I've been party to it a couple of times where, you know, you go, oh, I'm a little bit bored. This isn't really exactly working out. And you try and find ways of entertaining yourself. So yeah. You know, just as a TL, your guys are effectively going to reflect on you. If you are going as a team, so there's plenty of teams out there of players that go to these events regularly. It will reflect on you. People will look at how you're behaving. And you know, I mean, say that Andy, Lance, and I went out. We're wearing a whole load of November Foxtrot kit. And we're sitting there and we're just, you know, fucking not taking it seriously, just having a laugh or whatever. You know, other players are going to be immediately like, well, they're not fucking giving it their all. They're not buying into it. What a bunch of idiots. Like,
but also organisers pay attention to it as well.
Yeah.
So if your name pops up or you're quite like you can be identified easily, if you book on to the next event, they might end up just putting you with a section that they just give shitty taskings to and just like have them out on the field just running around like lunatics. But then again, that's down to the TL.
It's not completely down to TL. I think
no. I mean,
we're looking at it from the individualist. We're looking at it from the individualist individual perspective. But I mean, ultimately, for the most part, when you start going to these things regularly and you're building teams, etc., and you're going to be the TL of a team, it'll probably be a group of players that you've been playing with a long time, or I mean, I had it this weekend, so we didn't really have a prescribed TL per se. We kind of took just a variety of roles depending on what was happening with the event as to who was there at the time, and it worked quite well. It might be just right. I've got this idea. Let's do this. I'll take the lead, and we'll crack on with that. But there were times where, people, in my opinion, weren't taking it that seriously, and it bugged me. And I'm not going to name names on that front because I'm not going to upset the apple cart. It didn't have a major problem. But there was once or twice where we're on a bit of a quiet spell, and I was like, you have to turn around and go, right, shh, I'll keep it quiet now, guys, because we're potentially close to where the enemy might be. So it's not new players. It's not necessarily experienced players. It's just all players. Sometimes you do get a little bit bored and you don't see your mates for a long time. You want to hang out with them and have a bit of a natter. But you don't have to do that while you're playing the game.
No.
There are downtime periods that you can do that. And you can do
it was like Op Phoenix. I can't remember. It was one of the sections that I'd put out into the land, and they were setting up their little their little fobs. And it must have been about 3:30 in the morning, and I could hear snap, snap, snap. So I've radioed through. I was like, guys, can you hear the cracking? And then someone radioed through and said, oh, yeah, it's me. I'm just breaking twigs on board. And I was like, mate, I can hear this down in the valley. So the enemy that are 10 feet away from you are clearly going to hear that. Stop snapping sticks because you're bored. So it does happen.
Yeah. Callsign Samurai, salute reports. Yes, this was what I looked up earlier, but I'd forgotten about. So salute reports are basically size, so the number of individuals, vehicles, or assets involved. Activity, what's the observed entity is doing and its potential purpose. The location, so precise geographical coordinates or detailed description of the location. Again, it might be on your 12 o'clock. It might be, with descriptors of the site or mapping or anything like that. Unit, so that's the unit affiliation, or, is what you're observing a civilian gang? It might be a DEA or cartel or something like that, What's the markings or insignia, or, can you basically identify the unit or affiliation of that person? The time, so probably not so worried about the date, because ultimately if you're getting intel from 3 days ago, you might have been on the event a bit early. But the time of the observation obviously is quite handy.
Especially
and then equipment.
I saw a load of guys walking around.
Saw a load of soldiers, British Army. They've been here a week. Equipment, so a description of any equipment that they are using. So, for example, if they are carrying LMGs or snipers or mortar systems or whatever like that. So, thank you, Callsign Samurai. I will include that in my list going forward. Right, we talked about defining the mindset. Let's talk about planning for sustainment. So, before stepping off, we did talk about food and sort of checking equipment, but you need to make sure, because people cannot look after themselves, and it is important that you give them a bit of a reminder. Whether you should or you shouldn't, by the by, but ultimately, full mags and spare ammo. Has everyone got themselves kitted up, ready to go? Have they got batteries and backup batteries? Have they got pyro as per the mission? Have they got any other bits of kit that they might need for that certain tasking? If you've planned to go and lob a few mortar rounds on a location, have you got the mortar, and have you got the mortar rounds? Because there's no point getting out there an hour and a half into your patrol and going, oh, fuck, right, I've got to send a runner to go back and get the equipment that we've forgotten.
I mean, we've done it before, and you and me, I'm pretty sure it was you and me, or it was me or Lance. We've gone out to fire some mortars when we were down at Battle Lakes, and we've gone down there, and I've picked up 5 smokes. I'm like, brilliant. Yeah. Well, this isn't going to do anything. But you're there, so you fire all 5 smokes and then just back out again. And that. I
don't remember this.
It must have been. It was the Octo event when we were down at Battle Lakes, and me. Oh no, it was the guy with the Daytona LMG, and we walked down. Our section walked down to the edge of the lake, looking over that plateau bit, and he got down on the right hand side and just started firing. And I was just letting out a load of mortars to like distract him from. I think you were on the attack down the main road.
Right. Okay. I don't remember hearing about this.
Yeah, so literally, I just went out. He was like, "Right, we're going to blast it. Like, we're going to set off a load of like. You got 5 bangs." I was like, "Yeah, brilliant. I've got them all."
Yeah,
I think I had 1 bang and like 4 smokes. I was like, "Brilliant." Yeah. I was like,
I have had that before, especially with the FBS ones.
They're so hard, especially if you're in a rush.
Because they look exactly the same. They are like we've had that before. Like literally, we were at Longmoor and we were just rinsing through mortar rounds because there was an assault on the fob, and we were like, "Oh fuck it, just bang, 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 bang!" Yeah. And all of a sudden, the tube started to smoke, and we're like, "What's going on? We've set fire to it." And what had happened is basically just someone had grabbed a smoke grenade and lobbed it down the tubes, and we were like, "Ah!" Waving this metal tube, just smoke billowing out of it.
But you can't put anything round them either, because if you put anything round them, it makes it a little bit too tight, especially on my tube. Like, you put it round and you go, "Oh yeah, that's yellow, that's fine." But like once it's got, they need to be slightly clearer, guys, if you're listening.
Yeah. Right, that's basically the set so far. So we've basically got up to pre-patrol. We haven't got quite as far as I was expecting us to, but
that's right. We can do 3-part.
Yeah, no, I don't think we get a 3-part, but I think that does leave us enough for part 2. So we will be coming back to the subject. I'll just run through a couple of comments because there were bits and pieces that came in through the show. Matt said, "I was resistance on the battle sim at Apocalypse. It was honestly such a good day. It really was fun. I did enjoy myself, I must say. There were times where it was very reticent of a lot of the LARP stuff, where it's just like, I'm not even helping the game at this point. I'm just being obnoxious to you." A guy called Turk, bless him, he was on Stag, basically, and I was this huddled mass. And he gave me $1,000 because he was like, "Oh, does this help me later in the game? I don't know. Here's some money."
Here's some money, drugs, and a hooker.
Yeah. Thank you for watching, Matt. Charlie says, "Merrill Moabs are the best boots in the game." Thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
Callsign Samurai, we always do a kit check all together in a circle. That's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I like that. That's the way I do it. Because it's another bonding thing as well. Like it gets.
Has everyone got pants on? Oh,
yeah.
Let her check.
Who's got the condom?
I got weird quick. Marky Mark, I'm learning to be a better TL, but that has been done by that help from my section or the team that I've been working with. So, yeah. Pegasus, to be honest, Andy will probably set off pyro and sink the cruise ship.
No, it'll be him or Dave, wouldn't it? If anyone, if they keep blowing themselves up.
Pegasus also said, "Key thing for a MilSim and the leader is to know the limits of the people around you. Make sure they are rested and not pushed too far, because it's easy to keep pushing." That, my friend, I believe, is 2 points away from where we stopped. So, yep, I'll come back to that one. And Paulus Wales, who messaged me in the week about Meshtastic, I will get back to you. We did talk about Meshtastic in the show. I think key things for a leader in Airsoft: have their kit squared away, delegate effectively, able to map read, and able to communicate clearly. So there you
go. We got another one.
Yelling Starship Troopers quotes helps. Yeah, to be fair, when I've been quite disappointed before because I've been at games, and it was actually, Andy, with the one where you were 2IC, and I was like, I was trying to get everyone to be like, "We're Mike's Roughnecks," and it doesn't work. Nobody got involved.
So the trouble is, you don't have the grut. You look all happy and like, "Say my name." Like, it doesn't.
Chant my name. We're gonna win.
Yeah. Go team. That's the wrong movie, Mike.
Yeah. Top tip as well, by the way. I'd say top tip, but Starship Troopers is in the process apparently of being remade.
I don't know.
And I've tweeted the director because it's the same director, the guy that did District 9. So I think it's going to be pretty good. I'm hoping it's going to be really good, but I've tweeted him in the hope that I can volunteer to be an extra in the background. I was like, I don't care what capacity. I'll do it free. I'll bring donuts for everyone. I just want to be in it.
One of the bugs.
I'll be a bug. I'll be a frigging rock, mate. Whatever you want. Anyway, if you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so on an email, nofochat@hotmail.com. Our Instagram is @November_Foxtrot_NoFo. And the website is novemberfoxtrot.co.uk. If you think we've missed anything out on our list so far, then please feel free to get in touch and let us know. We are going to be adding all of this information as a page on our website, as well as a little download link as well, to hopefully share these skills and tips and tricks and things that we've learned.
And you too, so hopefully that'll be NoFo training course.
Oh, no. But it just ultimately it's another thing that's a useful resource to people. It's like a bit of an aid memoir, especially if you've not done it before. Something else to read up on if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to be having Tony Whitmarsh on the show, assuming that Andy has had the text message back. He has. We are having Tony Whitmarsh on the show. Oh, okay.
He's out. Which means that he'll be free next week. So I'm going to say yes.
We might be having Tony Whitmarsh on the show from Rift. We're going to be chatting about Shift to Rifts as something that is coming up at the end of next month, at May. There are tickets still available.
11, I think.
So is that for the full weekend? Because I know there's a lot of day tickets.
Yeah, I think there's 11 left for the whole weekend. But then day tickets, there's still quite a few. But even if you don't want to play Airsoft, turn up, have a laugh, come say hello, do a bit of shopping.
Here we go. Right, Saturday only booking is 10 places with 4 rental. Sunday only 3 places, 1 rental, and both days is only 6 places and 3 rentals.
That's changed since this morning.
But there are. Oh no, because that's all the other events and things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you can obviously book into the boot fair. I believe you can rock up. Yeah,
you can just turn up. Yeah, just turn up for the day for that.
Which is £10.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So
find out next week.
I've just booked my Shift to Rifts calling trip.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We're going to be there. That's not why it's going to be good, but we are going to be there. So if you'd like to come and say hi, then please feel free to do so. We will have to learn how to type. We will have a limited stock of the Mark II bandages. So we have. I've had my mum busy slaving away to make more of these freaking bandages. We've updated the foam. Basically, we've got if you had the Mark I, the foam was quite thick and dense. We've managed to source some better foam. So these will be more reticent of a Israeli bandage.
Right.
So if you are interested in that, we have 30, I believe, for sale.
Merch will be not physically on sale at Shift Your Rifts, but there will be. We will be going live with our. Although
I was going to wear. Yeah, I was going to wear one of my hoodies.
The hoodie's changing though.
We have hoodies. We have t-shirts.
And we have t-shirts.
We're looking into hats.
Maybe a couple of hats.
Maybe. We'll also have some extra stickers and things to give away as well. Yeah. Hopefully,
we've got
patches,
some good stickers lined up this year.
Yeah,
got some good stickers. Patches.
Yeah. Come say hi.
Us, all 3 of us.
Yeah.
Lance is even.
We're going to be doing a challenge. We're doing a challenge this year whereby we're going to be doing a trade up challenge to see what we can trade up for.
Yeah.
With the theory of just having a bit of a little extra game per se. So it should be good.
And we're going to bring back the much coveted press up
challenge.
Press up Bergen challenge. That should be good. So we've got lots planned. And
you know what? Let's have some sweets on the stand for people as well. So if you come over, you can come and grab a sweet.
Yes.
There you go. I'll nip down the cash and carry.
No, there may be fox themed.
Oh, okay.
I'll send you a link. I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
Okay. It's not worrying at all. In the meantime, have an absolutely cracking week. You've been watching November Foxtrot with me, Mike, at 9V Airsoft, which is over here. At Andy, Andy at Callsign Andy at Callsign _Coursemaster, and unfortunately Lance couldn't make it this week. But if you want to get in touch with him, he is the at _punished_1_ at the _punished1, something like that.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see him next week. In the meantime, have an absolutely cracking week. Andy, do you want closing words?
Don't be afraid to try something new in life, because you never know, it might surprise you.
Good shout.
And that's not even sexual.
Could be.
Could be.
On that note,
we'll
see you next week. Have a cracking week. You've been watching the November Foxtrot. Say goodbye, guys.
Bye, Guy.
Say goodbye, Guy.
Bye, Guy.
See you later. Bye.
Ciao, Bella. Stay NoFo.
Oh, I thought you were going to say something else. Right, bye. Smeak, something like that.